Greetings, listener. My name is Gina, and I want to share with you a story that happened shortly before the new year. I remained alive and well, and something out of the ordinary did not happen, but I rubbed my nerves noticeably. To begin with, I work in a great company, there are no problems with money, but I'm an introvert myself, and therefore sometimes I'd try to get out of a noisy office full of people and spend time alone. Of course, on the eve of the New Year's mess, I knew that it would be loud in my office, and in general, to put it mildly, but I don't like it, and I wanted to spend the last week before the new year alone. I thought for a long time how unusual it would be to pass the upcoming time, but thoughts still did not come to mind, and then I decided not to sweat and just sit in front of the fireplace in a rented country house. Silence, peace, a blanket and a pleasant crackling of logs in the fireplace is what I need. In general, I rented myself a house in some forest resort. I packed my things, said goodbye to my colleagues on the last working day, and went to conquer the forest. When I arrived, I realized that I was there alone, the other houses were empty, which is not surprising. No one in their right mind would spend the pre-holiday days alone somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But it only made me feel better. In addition, solitude and frosty air with a pleasant aroma of fir trees and cedar would help me relax and recover after working days. The day was just great. I was walking along a forest path, the snow crunched pleasantly under my feet, and a pleasant frost stung my face. For the first time in a year, I experienced real happiness. I went back to the cabin, set fire to the logs in the fireplace, and made myself some cocoa. I sat there and just got high. The crackling in the fireplace calmed me, and I was also glad that there was not a soul for many kilometers around, and no one would disturb the peace of my little paradise on earth. Then I was drawn to sleep. I put out the fireplace and went to bed. Shit happened on the first night. It all started with the fact that I suddenly woke up and I didn't even remember why. Either I had a nightmare or some sound woke me up. I sat up on the bed and looked around. Nothing special. There was no one in the room, the clock was ticking peacefully. No one was scratching in the closet and no one was rummaging under the bed, but from somewhere I had an irresistible desire to look out the window. The fact is that, lying in bed, I could only see a piece of the sky from the window. To see everything, it was necessary to come close. I got out of bed, put my feet in slippers and went to the window. And there, in the distance, I saw him. The snowman. It was the most ordinary snowman of 3 balls superimposed on each other. His eyes and mouth were lined with round stones. In principle, nothing special, but what was happening seemed strange to me, because I remember for sure that I did not sculpt any snowmen. On the other hand, I haven't looked through this window before. Maybe it was a snowman standing there before, and I just didn't pay attention. It could have been made by the previous tenants who rented the house. For a second, I was overcome by a feeling of nostalgia for my childhood. I remembered how, as a 5-year-old kid, my friends and I played snowballs and made snowmen, but this wonderful memory quickly disappeared, and anxiety came to replace it. I began to feel that I was not alone in this forest. Don't get me wrong, I loved solitude, but at that moment it seemed to me that somewhere out there in the impenetrable wilderness was not a person at all. The fact is that there was not a single house next to the snowman. They were all located in another part of the resort. Who needed to go so far away from home to just make a snowman? This question tormented me, but despite the tension in the air, I fell back to sleep because fatigue was stronger than bad thoughts. To my surprise, I slept peacefully until morning. When I woke up, the first thing I did was look out the window and, of course, the snowman was standing in his own place. I exhaled with relief, because contrary to the banal horror movies, the snowman did not change in any way. He did not bleed, he did not wrap someone's guts around him, and his mouth was not gaping in a huge toothy smile. I put a bolt on it and went about my business. The day went just fine. I walked to the frozen lake, listening to the sounds of the winter forest. Then I came home, cooked delicious roast pork at home, sat by the fireplace with a cup of cocoa and went to bed. At night I woke up again, and again I didn't understand why. I automatically went to the window and saw that damn snowman. At that moment I was seriously scared. I was ready to swear by anything that the snowman was standing closer to the house than last night. I couldn't sleep anymore. I tossed from side to side in an attempt to fall asleep, but in vain. So, with varying success, interrupting for a short nap, I checked until morning. I woke up very broken. I had no desire to go for a walk, but I decided to go outside and get a better look at the snowman. I walked up to this snow asshole and looked around. I didn't see any human footprints leading from the snowman into the forest, so no one could move it secretly at night. And then how did he get closer to the house? It's nonsense. I tried my best to peer into the wilderness of the forest, but still I didn't notice anyone. Although I couldn't say for sure that there were no people in the area, because the visibility due to the blizzard was so. That's the way it is. Someone's kidding me. He goes out at night to move the snowman, and then hides in one of the houses, and the snowstorm sweeps up the tracks in the morning. Now I'll figure out this infection and tell her everything I think about how I thought. Emboldened, I decided to go around the neighboring houses, but to my surprise and dismay, I realized that they were definitely empty. The windows of the houses were completely iced over, which means that they were not heated from the inside. I didn't believe that some repulsed joker would deliberately sit in a frozen house for me without making a sound. I felt uneasy again. I looked at the snowman again. This bastard was still standing and smiling at me. Then I freaked out, flew up to him and fucked him up. The head and body flew apart, and the pebbles fell out and scattered on the white snow. Serves you right, freak, I thought, looking at the snow corpse, after which I went to the house in high spirits. You can think what you want about me, but I was satisfied. At least I won't have to think about him anymore. What a naive fool I am. On the third night, things got even worse. I woke up to a sharp knock on the window, as if someone had slammed a snowball into it with all the dope. I looked out the window, and my soul sank into my heels. The snowman was standing unharmed, and, worst of all, he was even closer than last night. I started going through the dumbest explanations of what was happening in my head. What was that sound? Why is the snowman whole again? Maybe it's the kids making fun of me. What the hell kind of kids? I'm sitting, the dog knows where, and there are no people here, especially children. No, we need to put an end to this once and for all! Close quote. I decided. The last thing I wanted to do was go out in the bitter cold and approach this bastard, but if I wait until morning again, the blizzard will cover my tracks, and I will never know who is mocking me. I got dressed, went outside and approached the snowman, and that's when I saw a chain of hefty footprints that came from the snowman and disappeared into the darkness of the forest. So whoever did it lives in the forest, not in one of the houses. I was again seized with a feeling of anxiety. It seemed to me again that someone was watching me from the thicket, and this someone was very angry with me for breaking the snowman. I decided not to push my luck and, as quickly as possible, making my way through a dense layer of snow, went to the house. I put on my pajamas and went to bed, but for some reason I couldn't get warm. I lay like this for 2 hours. I wrapped myself in a blanket and curled up, but it didn't get any warmer, and the next second my faint hope of falling asleep burst like a soap bubble. Again the same blow to the window. I was afraid to go to the window because I knew what I would see there in the distance. I rolled over to the side of the bed that faced the window. I wanted to look at the night sky and distract myself from what was happening, but in the same second I regretted it. Because he was standing right outside the window. The snow creature almost pressed against the window. She looked at me with her stone eyes and smiled with a nasty mouth. My blood froze in my veins. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. For some reason it seemed to me that if I lost sight of this scum, she would get into the house. I spent the rest of the night looking at this snow abomination, and when the first rays of dawn pierced the night sky, I passed out. The last thing I saw when I fell asleep was the mocking gleam of a snowman in the sunlight. I lay there until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. When I woke up, I dressed quickly and flew out the door of the house. Even though I still had 4 paid days of rent left, I wasn't going to stay in this sore spot for a minute. Leaving, I glanced at the place where the snowman was. He was standing a few meters from the window and, apparently, was looking into the forest because I didn't see any pebbles on his head. I got home safely. I had a great New Year with my parents, but to this day I remember this snowman smiling, looking straight into my soul. But someone really was there after all. Footprints in the snow could not appear by themselves. Well, I couldn't see the face of the one who was with me all this time, but I don't regret it. Even though 3 years have passed since the story, I can't calmly look at snowmen, and I change the road if I meet a snowman on the way in the evening.